So, being Christian means easier life, right? Not necessarily. So let's talk about it. Life can sometimes be a roller coaster, and we get it.
So tune into The Walk, where we'll explore the modern-day Christian journey by addressing challenging questions and trending topics faced by young adults today. No topic is off limits. Hello and welcome to The Walk. We are back with our fifth episode. Number five.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be a good one. So we want you guys to start sharing this, start liking it, subscribe to our page too so you can see the future ones. But our topic today, we're starting a series called The Whole Truth. And today we're tackling suffering. So it's who's to blame for my suffering? I think it's a question that we have all had.
Yeah.
You know, we've all gone through stuff.
Yeah.
And we want to know, who can we point the finger at? Who do we blame? So to kick things off, I want to introduce my two co-hosts here. On my left, we got Brian. On my right, we got CJ. How's you guys' weeks, man?
You go first. I was like, my week's been a long week.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh, man. As Brian kind of said, my week was very long. I have pretty long weeks because I'm juggling so many hats right now. But it's been a productive week. So I can honestly say thank God for having a productive week and giving me the ability to actually have these different things that I'm in charge of so I can make a difference and make an impact in other spaces.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's true.
So I heard something before that was like, remember when you used to pray for the things that you complain about now?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh man,
yeah,
that's tough.
Like, be watchful. Be watchful what you pray for.
Right, exactly. God might just answer that prayer. Brian, what about you, man?
My week, it was pretty good. Really tiring. Like I'm still in school, but I think the crazy thing was we have like a project right now. We're working on a short film. So it was, so I was talking to my friend Steven. I was like saying, you know, most people, until you actually do it, you don't realize how much work it takes to like do certain things, right? You know, like you watch a movie, you be like, man, that's really cool. Or, oh, I got a camera, I can go do that. But then like when you actually like do the actual steps that it takes to like make something, you're just like, oh, wow, like.
A lot goes into
it. So I think that for me was that realization of like, wow, that's a lot. And I think I even have more of an appreciation for like shows and like movies and like TV because it's like there's hundreds of people that are like behind the scenes making this thing happen. So
yeah.
That's
I'm sure you probably like catch on to things that we wouldn't either.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Stuff. Like, do you see mistakes when you're watching stuff and you're like, people think it's professional, but they're amateurs. Right?
No, you know what's crazy? I was literally watching a movie like Wednesday night, right? Wednesday night, and I peeped in one of the shots. It was like a mirror, and I peeped like the boom mic in the back, and I literally like rewinded like 10 seconds. I was like, no, I didn't peep that. And then I went back and I see it. I was like, oh, I got it. But normally I don't see. Normally I don't see that stuff. But it was in like one of like the 1980s type of movies. But like it wasn't like it was like Harrison Ford, like it wasn't nothing like low budget. Right. It was still like a motion picture movie. It's still like a big movie. It's still like a big movie, but of course at the time like nobody's like, ooh, there goes the mic. Like you know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, like they're hyped up with the action. So
that's what's up, man. So what would you say has been your favorite thing about school so far?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I would say maybe not my okay, I'll say the one thing that almost like an inspiration in a way. One of my teachers, he went to UCF as well, and the thing for him was he felt as though when he went out into the real world, he didn't get enough at school to like prepare him, right? And it wasn't per se like the skills, but it was more of, okay, like this is what the industry is like get prepared. Whether that be, hey, you know, you're going to be working 12, 16, 18-hour days back to back, or, you know, you can be good at cameras or you can be good at this or that, but people don't really care as much about that. Like they care about, okay, how well do you work in a team? Like,
Right,
would I want to
yeah.
call you back for the next video or
Yeah, you're
shoot,
right.
whatever. So it's more about like how well you work with people and those kind of
Mhm.
things, rather than just like your talent per se. So
Right.
I think
I got
that for
you.
me was just like the realization of having a teacher that, you know, kind of puts in the time and the effort to show you what you're getting into rather
Yeah.
than, okay, I'm just going to teach you the skills, but when you get out in the real world, like you don't really know what to
Okay.
do or you're not really prepared.
Right.
So like
okay.
I respected that.
That's
Okay.
super
That's
important.
nice,
Let me
man.
tell you, man.
Mhm.
I can relate to that highly because like I'm a dentist, right? And in school, like you would hear that, like, oh, school is only like the bare bones, and then you get out there and you're still not sure what to do, and that
Yeah.
definitely true. I'm like, wow, it's a lot that I don't know. And even the teachers that like did try to give you like tidbits, like, okay, this is like, yeah, we're doing this in school now, but like start thinking like, oh, in the
Yeah.
real world, you're not gonna do it like this because this is highly inefficient. Like in the real world, you're gonna have to like do stuff like that. And I definitely appreciated those teachers for that. But I will say, man, yeah, it's true. Nothing can prepare you. Nothing can prepare you for you to get out there and you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is like, yeah. So I definitely get that. I feel like that ties into my week because my week has just been work.
Really?
Just straight work.
It's just work. And it's some weeks are better than others.
Mhm.
This week was one of the better ones. I think I definitely took a little bit more time myself I've been struggling like waking up in the morning and trying to spend time like with God before I start my day. But this week I tried to at least like some days, it's like, okay, you get up and do a little good 30 minutes. But other days it was like, I'm gonna get about 5.
Right.
But I tried to like at least like, all right, do like something, you
Right.
know, and to give me like an ounce of something like to hold me throughout the day and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I do think it helped because there definitely were times through the week where I could have been a lot more like down or like let my like joy just be like completely
depleted.
evaporated.
Yeah.
But it just dipped a little bit. It didn't evaporate. It just dipped.
A little cruise.
Yeah, it's part of it. So I'll take it though. I just need to work on the consistency to keep it going.
Yeah.
I think that's the tough part of things.
And that's real.
Yeah. All right, so guys, as you are coming in, make sure you are liking, subscribing, sharing. I'm telling you, this is going to be a great topic. This is a question that we all have: who is to blame for our suffering? You don't want anyone to miss this. And also, tell me how you guys' weeks
I
were.
was
you
just
know?
about to
Yeah.
say that. I was like,
Put
what
in the
about
comments,
y'all?
yeah.
Yeah.
Put in the comments. Let us
Yeah,
know how your
give me-
week went. Anything
Yeah.
great happened. Ups and downs,
Exactly.
highs and lows, testimonies, all that stuff.
Exactly. So, we're actually going to switch it up. Normally, we do the So Tell Me How segment. Well, actually, since you just mentioned testimonies, we're going to do the If He Did It For Me, He Can Do It For You, or the Won't He Do It, as we want to recall it now. Won't
Oh,
He Do
so
It
that's
segment.
the new name.
Yeah.
That's the new name.
Won't he do it?
Won't he do it?
Trying to be current.
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to be a little hip. Trying to be a little
With the kids.
With the waves. With the
What
waves.
kids saying. So during this segment, we basically want to hear from you guys, from us, just testimonies. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. God didn't have to save you from a car crash this week, but He did something for you, and we want to know because if He did it for you, He can do it for us, right?
I was gonna say with an intro like that, you have to go.
I know, right? I was like, wow,
He's fired up.
Set myself up.
He's fired up.
All right, so let me. I actually didn't. Normally, I try to think of one beforehand, but it was a busy. I'll tell you guys, we were here to the wire right before even coming live. So, yeah, let me think real quick
Maybe
about
that's
my
your
week.
testimony.
Right? No, honestly, though, for real, like being with you guys, this production, this podcast, I feel like it definitely has to be a God thing because there has never been an episode where I felt like prepared.
Really?
Like, okay, it's like, okay, let's get here and be prepared. It's always like chaos a little bit, like it's always like something's happening right before the show, like things aren't set right, but then
Right.
it always turns out
Great,
well. And like
yeah.
people are always like saying like, oh, you guys did a great job. And so I'm like,
That's
oh,
good.
I'm like, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't even know.
My
I
goodness.
remember one episode
Yeah.
that came in like literally 30 seconds before it actually started.
I remember that one. Yo, yeah. Even last week, I was like, oh my gosh, I got off late. Like I came in like right after the first segment and
Yeah.
everything. So I feel like this definitely gotta be God because a lot of times He makes things more difficult for you so you can know and like have to rely on him. Like if things went smoothly and then people compliment you, you'd be like, oh yeah, well thanks, you know.
That was me.
Exactly. Yeah, it was all on me.
But I'm
Right.
like, it's not me.
Right.
Boy,
He's like, trust me, I don't want to take the blame for that. If anything went wrong.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. So no, that's a testimony in and of itself. If you're in a situation where things aren't going that smoothly, it might be because, God wants you to rely on him and he wants like to get the glory out of everything.
Right.
But in this week, let me say, so I with work is one thing that always like challenges me. And lately I've been working 5 days. It's a lot. I do not like it. Do not recommend. I don't know how the rest of the world does it. But I've been trying to, I work at 2 different offices. One of them, I've been trying to move the office, move us in a better direction, because I feel like I've been stressed out there. I've been noticing a lot of my coworkers are also getting stressed out as well. So I want to move us in a better direction. And I know it's going to be a huge task, and it's not a task that I want to do at all. I definitely don't. But here we are.
So, question: you're like a manager?
No, I'm a dentist. So I try to shy away from anything managerial. Like literally, people don't understand me. Like I just want to be a dentist. I just want to do the clinical work and nothing else. Like I don't want to handle the money. I don't want to handle the people. Like nothing. Just let me drill this tooth and like get you out of pain, and like that's it. Like I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to like convince you to do anything. I don't want to do any of that. And I've even said that in interviews. Like I'll go on an interview and be like, they're like, tell you about myself. I'm like, look, I'm a clinician. All right. I don't want someone to come and I have to convince them to do 10 crowns. I don't want to do that. All right. So like, I'm very upfront about these things. And in this office, I have like tried to do that, tried to just like stay more on the clinical side. But I'm like, okay, if I'm being stressed out by me not getting more involved, and like other people are getting stressed out by me not being more involved, and the reason I don't want to be involved is so I'm not stressed. Yeah, I might as well.
Yeah, if I'm already gonna be stressed,
if I'm already stressed, I might as well try to get more involved and like try to like steer things in a better direction. So that's the task that I've been embarking on for a while. But this week we started to take a little bit more steps, had a meeting, and like started to try to get things in the right direction. I know it's gonna take some time, but I definitely see already how like God just, he sets things up. Like it's literally another thing where it's like I have to rely on him, because I can't, this isn't my strong suit like at all. Yeah. But yeah, like he's gonna have to be the one to do it. And like I see already how he's starting to help things like get better. So I give him the praise and glory for that. And yeah.
Yeah, I was even gonna compliment you on that. I was gonna say, people respect that though. When you were talking about, okay, like I'm not gonna try to convince somebody to get like 10 crowns, because I'm like, I guess in that business, I'm sure there are people like that where it's like, hey, like let's suck up all their money. You know what I mean? Like, but I do respect that, and you kind of made me think about something that Shane and I were talking about a couple weeks ago. It was kind of where sometimes we don't, like when it comes to like leadership positions, it's like sometimes it just like comes to you, even without it even being something that like you're asking for. But then it's like, you're like, okay, I don't want it. But then whenever you don't do it, you see almost like all of the things around where it's like, man, like, do I have to? Like, you know what I mean? And then like you almost like maybe like hold it off a little bit longer. You're like, all right, I guess I just might as well do it, because so it's like, it was kind of funny because it almost makes you realize like you're not the only one that goes through those things. Because
which is encouraging, for real.
Yeah, that still doesn't make it easy, but it is encouraging.
It doesn't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely. It's funny because I was talking to Shane about things too. And I was like asking him, because everyone that knows Shane knows dude's a natural leader. Like he's got all those like qualities in him. So I was picking his brain one time, like, yo, how did you become like? Were you always like this? Like, what things do you do? And he did give me a lot of good advice. So I'm glad I have people in my corner that I can reach out to help me.
Did anybody in the comments say anything?
Yeah.
She's in the comments right now.
She's in the comments waiting, like, okay, y'all gonna talk about me.
So Gray Music said, my week has been great and productive. I'm glad that my family has stayed safe through the flooding down here in
SoFlo.
SoFlo.
Yeah.
Oh wow, didn't even know that was happening. That was they were able to find gas because apparently that was hard to find right now. Yeah, that's a little important.
I heard about that. I heard about that.
No, SoFlo gets bad with flooding sometimes.
Yeah,
Oh my
definitely.
gosh.
I know it's pretty bad.
goodness.
Was it last week with that whole situation where Florida just got like an influx of rain out of nowhere?
After not having rain for bad long.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I think you're due. Right now.
They made up for like the past 5 months.
Literally. That was wild. That was wild.
Definitely.
But what about you guys? You got any testimonies to share?
I would say, for me this week, I would say the kind of community I have and the positions I'm in. As Brian was kind of stating, some of the positions that we're in, we never really thought we were going to be in or even ask for, and people just come to us and ask for it. And for me, I kind of saw that this week, and it just kind of hit me while we were all talking. So on Thursday, I had a meeting with my nonprofit and all the people I work with, and I work with some pretty amazing people and professional individuals in the technology space. And I'm a leader in that space as well, being a chief of staff.
Okay.
Right, being a chief of staff and a co-founder of a Caribbean nonprofit tech space. So I was like, wow, like God is really providing for me in that area as well. And also being a leader in another platform, an e-learning platform, which I never thought I was going to do in my wildest dreams. So I'm literally managing a sales team for an entire technical boot camp platform for a learning environment. Working with some amazing people because we had a meeting today and all the kind of heads of the department, we went over what's been going on, different strategies, how's the boot camp going so far. And it was just great to be in that space with other Black professionals as well. And then now today, being with you guys, other professionals, right? Being able to give back and talk about God and give different perspectives for the younger generation and youth, and just being with you guys, because I do look up to you guys. So there's been countless conversations I've had with Brian, even though I might be older. Brian is a very wise dude. Brian is so wise among his years.
We're happy to have him here.
Right, especially when Brian is speaking under the influence. Like, yo, Brian will spit some game to you, like through God. Like, I'm like, yo, this dude is crazy. Like, I needed that, and it was very well sent. And you too, Andre. Like, just seeing how everything you've navigated through life, bro. Just seeing you become a dentist and how you carry yourself professionally outside and inside of work. Like, it speaks for itself. So I'm very happy to be in the spaces with you guys, and I'm blessed. I can honestly say that.
Hey, man, we're a blessed
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, bro. I feel like I don't even know how to come back from that. I'm like, man, I'm like blown away. I would say, what I'm definitely thankful for would be, so kind of to go along with, like I was saying, I was like making a short film a lot this week. I think the group or, the people that you embark on, whatever, let's say like your business or let's say like your coworkers or whatever, I think this week showed me how important like the people that either you surround yourself with, or if you guys have like a common goal to get something done, like whether you have a good group or a bad group, that makes a major difference in like the quality of things, or just like your own like mental, just like so many things like that. So pretty much like my group that I had for this project, I actually was blessed because I hear from a lot of my other friends that we didn't end up like getting paired up and we wanted to. Their groups, pretty much they're like, some people haven't even showed up, one girl, she's like, okay, I can only be here for one day of the week, and that one day is when we have class. So it's like, okay, you know what I mean? So, so literally, like, I'm hearing all these. Yeah, so like I'm hearing like all these other stories, and I'm not gonna sit here and say like everything was peaches and cream for our group,
right.
But when I hear, I guess, the other complications that other people had, I'm just like, man, I'm really thankful that things worked out as best as they could for me. So
I like that, man. It kind of reminds me, when you were in high school and you had those group projects, you try to pair up like with people But then you realize it's like, man, they don't know how to do no work. Like they don't do anything. But after a while, you realize, let me pair up with the smart people.
Yeah.
So, let me go.
They don't want you.
Right.
That's the thing. They're like, nah, man, we're good.
Yeah. Don't you hang with those people that don't do nothing?
Yeah. But yeah.
All right. Well, we haven't seen any testimonies come through the chat, so we're gonna move to the next segment. But if anyone wants to share anything, feel free to share in the comments how God has been good to you. So we're gonna go to the "So Tell Me How" segment, and we have an interesting one today.
You trying to?
So I don't know how many of you guys saw this. Recently, there had been this couple that had been married for 10 years. They got 3 kids.
Let's just say that again. 10 years.
10 years.
Okay.
10 years.
With 3 kids?
With 3 kids.
3 kids. Okay.
The kids were like all in the teens, like maybe like 12, 13, 15, something like that.
Okay.
Right? The wife, I don't know why or how, I don't remember. I read the article, but I forgot. She decided to do this DNA test to see like your family history and all that stuff. And finds out that she's married to her cousin. After 10 years. 10 years, 3 kids.
Goodness.
3 kids. Okay.
So
where we going with this? Where we going
I
with
want to
this?
know
goodness.
what y'all doing in the situation.
Oh my goodness.
Honestly,
Wait.
CJ, I want you to go first because I know we had this conversation. We had this conversation like 2 weeks ago.
Wait.
So I really want to hear.
Wait, so how far removed are we, right? Like,
So, all right, so they said wherever the relation was the great grandmother, and then the test couldn't be conclusive as to like how many removed. But it
Yeah.
said like 3 to 10.
3
so I was
to
like,
10.
okay, what kind of range is this? Like, as
I don't
early
know.
as 3, but
mean,
I don't know. But the relation that they found was with the great grandmother.
man. I mean, you think about it on the ark. There had to be
Yeah, I be thinking about that sometimes. I'm
Yeah,
like,
like-
clearly,
on the ark. You know,
know.
there had to be some stuff going on, but
right?
their situation was obviously not intentional, right?
Right,
So it's like, what do I do in this situation? We have 3 kids, but we're cousins.
Exactly.
But we're far enough removed to where would it still be
And clearly,
incest?
their kids are healthy. The kids don't have
Right, they don't have right.
So,
Because
like,
you know, usually you would have some
Yeah.
type of form of defect.
so I was like,
but-
okay, no harm, no foul. Like,
So what you doing? So what you doing? CJ, what you doing?
Hey man, like we said earlier, all my help comes from the Lord. So I'd have to fast and pray about it, man.
Okay. And what happens if he's like, it's in your hands? Like, what if he?
If God says that,
No,
it's
like, what if he's like?
I mean-
what if he gives you an open option where, hey, you know,
I mean, I don't.
let us know in the comments, y'all. I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, let's go in the
Right now.
comments. What's
I
I
wanna
got in the
know.
comments, man?
No one said nothing
We'll
yet.
circle
Oh,
back.
hold on. Danielle says, well, at this point, after 10 years, it's whatever. But they don't seem to be close cousins.
Right.
okay,
Which I get that mindset.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you my thoughts. I just don't know that I can look at my wife the same.
yes, I
Like,
agree.
after
I
that, like,
agree.
Even if I like really want to be with you, I feel like we might have to like co-parent or something. Cause like I don't know. Like I just don't know. How do I climb into bed with you? You know? Like
Hey,
I
that
mean,
cousin.
at this point, you my wife, but like you're my cousin at this point. Like we're
Yeah,
friends.
I agree.
We're good buddies.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
At the same time, we kind of have to think about the kids as well. You know, in that situation, do you really want to break up a sustainable functioning family?
Okay.
Because
I see where you're going, but like at the same time, at one point these kids are gonna figure this out.
I was just about to say. I was like,
I mean,
and they're gonna be like,
I mean,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, I mean, how would they? Unless y'all said
no.
something.
Okay, so let's
I don't
be
know.
honest. Let's be honest. If your parents,
Mm-hmm.
if that was their situation and they were together, everything like that, would you be more upset that they didn't tell you in what you're saying, or them tell you? Because if you're gonna go that route, it's like I can hear you were married to your cousin all these years and you never said it. Compared to like, still they're gonna have that reaction
Oh, man.
of like upsetness or like disgust when they find out. So
yeah, this is a
I want to hear what people got to say.
Yeah,
Let it
what's
play.
This is
That's
tremendously
in the comments,
interesting.
man. Let me look.
Sister Hunt says, "Do nothing, continue as usual."
Okay.
Gray Music says, "Hey man, you in it at this point, and low key, we all related. So as long as y'all are first or second cousins,
Steven.
I see that point though. It's tough though. 10 years.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
You
I agree.
clearly saw forever in this person. You clearly like fully invested in everything. It's not like there was some hiccup and this was like the tipping point. Like, well, I didn't like you anyway. You know? Like clearly, there's a lot of love here. I couldn't justify a split, or I don't know if I could split, but I just don't know that we continue as normal.
Honestly, I'm with you on this one. I'm with you on this because I just feel like in my own mind, it's like, like you're my cousin. Like
But
I'm
it's
thinking
so far removed though, and in a sense, we are all related in some aspect.
Okay, but we don't look at a girl and be like, oh yeah, she's cute. Oh wait, no, she technically is my cousin.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
because it's the fact that like this is now a thought that's in my brain.
Yes,
right.
Like it's not.
It's
not the truth of it or not truth of it. Like, cause we all technically
just a
it's like the fact of like,
right. You know, I crawl into bed and it's like the only thing going through my third cousin. Like I don't know. I don't know how to turn that down.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I remember when we first had this conversation, I think it was literally, I think it was you and me, and like the rest of the room were against us. We're just like, oh, like almost like we were crazy for thinking.
I was ostracized. They're like, clearly you didn't love your wife. I'm like,
wait, we never said all that. I think that maybe we're more of the practical, maybe like we see, okay, beyond just the, okay, either you leave or you stay. It's like we're thinking of, okay, what's going to be going through our heads?
Right.
Like, what are people going to be saying? Or just imagine that, like, you come to church the next week. Oh wow! Did you hear, Brother Hunt and Sister Hunt? like, just imagine that. Like, you're gonna have to go through all of that trauma. At least that's how I was thinking it. It was like, hey, like this is more than just the okay. Well, we're all good. Like, no, it comes with repercussions.
Right. I mean, Audrey, I was gonna put you in the hot seat, but we'll say that when the camera's cut.
Oh boy. All right, let me read some more comments. Danielle also says, since it's far removed, I wouldn't care, but if they were close cousins, I'd be upset if my parents didn't say. Ivan says, oh, hey, Ivan. It's one of my coworkers. He says, no pain, no gain. Carolyn says, none of their shared family knew. Assumed there was a wedding, right? How did no one know? They actually talked about that in the article.
Oh,
no one knew.
Really?
No one knew. Yeah, literally, like she talks about at the wedding, like none of their relatives like recognized each other or anything like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That must have been like a
somehow,
or something.
yeah, I don't know how.
Plot twist, maybe they didn't care.
Oh, I remember they were like, none of my business.
Yeah.
Oh my
Wait,
goodness.
ain't that our Sheba over there? Ain't that our Sheba?
Ain't that Aunt Mabel second cousin twist? Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah.
That's dicey.
That really is.
Oh,
that
man.
really is. I don't honestly think there's a good answer to that.
I don't think so
I
either.
think that's like an impossible situation.
Very.
And I think we know what the right answer is, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
okay, the right answer would be, of course, for the sake of the family and the kids to stay, but
Yeah, and that's what this couple did do. They the wife was saying like at first it was like a huge shock and stuff, but like the husband was like, well look, kind of like what everyone says, like 10 years, like we've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
this doesn't. I think he said like, oh, this piece of paper doesn't change anything. You know,
Right.
That's true.
Like
That's true.
it takes a strong man to say that, but yeah, they're still going strong. They didn't have any too much issues with it, which I'm very happy for them because this could have wrecked me. So
So moral of the story, don't do Ancestry.com.
Right.
Do not.
No, you should probably before you get
No.
married.
if they didn't know this, I live by this. It may not be the best thing to live by, but ignorance is bliss. All right. If I didn't know, no problem.
All I'm gonna say is, you say
So-
that, bro. What happens? You're just like, oh, do it before. What happens if the girl of your dreams, or so you thought, like you're at that moment,
Right.
and then we can end it here because I know we got to move on. But I'm like, if how you're putting it, you're like, okay, well, maybe I should do that test before. What happens if you're like God, like this girl is perfect. I know you sent me her. You're just happy, and she's like, hey, by the way, like they had a deal on the Ancestry.com. Like, let's do it. You're like, okay, and then you find out like that.
Okay, that was God's way of telling me that's not the person for me. So obviously, he's like, all right, let's do this ancestry test. So
okay.
you know this is your cousin,
Oh,
so
okay.
you should not get married.
Okay. Okay.
I got something better out there for you.
Right. That's not that I'm not related to.
Okay.
Wow. Sister Cardi says, take it to the Lord in prayer. We're all related. True. Steven says, are you looking at your kids different too? It's a good point. I didn't even think about like how
didn't
you
think about
perceive
that.
What
them.
do they become?
I don't even know. I'm not good at that stuff.
That's your cousin.
That's my brother, cousin.
Brother,
What is that? What is that?
Cousin, son.
Bruckin.
Danielle says, moral of the story, don't tell Andre. I agree. Don't
Don't
tell
tell
Andre. Don't tell me. Honestly, like I will go so far as to say, if my wife did this and she knew, if she doesn't want things to change, don't tell me. I give you permission. Don't tell me.
Don't
Yeah.
tell me.
We're good to
Yeah,
go.
you can
Let's
add me
keep
that
going.
in there too. Yeah, don't
All
tell
right.
All right, we're gonna move on. Let me read this last comment. Vera says, "True meaning of blood is thicker than water." I can't with her. I cannot with Vera. So
my goodness.
we want to get into our main topic now.
Oh man.
Who's to blame for my suffering? And I think the first thing that comes to mind, like if I was to say that like there was two answers to this, like what two answers would be given?
Who's to blame?
Yeah. So I was like, there's only two possibilities. I feel like immediately these two possibilities come to mind.
The devil and God.
The devil and God,
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
either like, oh, the devil is doing it or God's doing it. So that's kind of where we want to start discussing first, right? So let's say God's to blame for all my suffering.
Okay.
How would we prove this? For me, I'll say the first example that comes to my mind is the example of Job. Right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
So anyone that's not familiar, the story of Job is basically Job was this very righteous, amazing guy, didn't do anything wrong, perfect, right? The devil comes to this meeting that God is having, and God's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" The devil's like, "Oh, I was walking around the earth, whatever." And God's like, "Oh, have you seen this dude Job? He's pretty amazing, right? He's great." And Job's like, "Oh, he's only amazing because like you do all these nice things for him. You bless him. He's wealthy. He's got children, all that stuff." And God basically gives the devil permission to start taking things away from Job.
Yeah.
And at each time the devil takes something from Job, Job doesn't do anything. He stays righteous. Like he doesn't, start cursing God or anything like that. And then the devil comes back and he's like, "Oh, it's because you didn't take this." And then God's like, "Well, take that." Then the devil takes that, and still Job remains faithful. So this happens a series of times until Job is literally left with nothing. Like nothing.
Covered in
Kids
balls.
died.
Yeah, like some of the stuff
Right.
Job went through, literally and imagine finding out all this in a matter of like minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Literally a servant comes to him and is like, "Oh, hey, this rival nation came and they took all your sheep and
Right.
oxen and cows. So like all your wealth is gone.
Yeah.
They also raided this other stuff and took more of your things. Also your kids were all in this house and a tornado came out of nowhere and killed them all."
Yeah.
Like so, you're just
Yeah.
It's like what?
It's like
like yo, literally-
until everything is gone.
Until everything is gone.
Yeah.
Then like you're like, holy crap, this is crazy. But like he was like, oh, like naked I came into the world and naked I'm gonna leave. So like
Right.
bless the name of God. Like still it's okay.
Right.
Then the devil's like, "Oh no, but you didn't let me touch him. Like he's still healthy." So God's like, "Oh, go ahead. Like take his health." Dude strikes this man with like
Like the sores and
all
boils.
over his
Yeah.
body. He like
Trying to scrape them off his
right,
skin.
like
yeah.
pus is oozing out.
Yeah.
Like dude is miserable, and still like
Pain.
Job does not like curse God or anything like that. His friends come.
Oh yeah.
Oh, gotta love the friends, man. And they're like, so Job, I'm sure at that moment, like, it's really hard for you to be going through something and
Right.
remain like
faithful.
faithful, right? Like
Yeah.
you want to just be like, woe is me, like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the world is on my shoulder. God, how could you? He doesn't do this. Then his friends come, his closest friends. And like I did not catch this until someone told me this, but it's in the Bible. When his friends came to him, they walked inside, saw Job, they sat down and did not say anything for a week, y'all.
Oh, okay. I know.
Bro, that's how
Yeah.
pitiful this man looked. They were like, "Oh, shh."
Like, what do I say? What do I do?
The heck? Like,
Right.
They did not. They were speechless for a week. Like they literally didn't say anything. But when they did finally figure out what to say, they started blaming him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Job,
Like, maybe
Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, why would you do?
Yeah.
hey man, ask for forgiveness. You want me to pray for you?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
give me some prayer.
Right.
So like he doesn't even have a shoulder to lean on. You know, he's going through it by himself, lost everything.
That's tough.
And his closest people are blaming
And
him.
his closest people, his wife is like, "Yo, dude, just curse God and
Curse
die.
God.
Yeah.
Right, man.
Why are you still here? Your wife,
Yeah.
who's supposed to love
oh
you,
my
through
goodness.
thick and thin. You know,
Right.
better for worse, sickness or health. It's telling you
Yeah.
to curse God and die. Like, yeah. So this man went through it, and apparently all at God's behest.
Yeah.
God's like, "Hey, devil, go.
Yeah, you could go ahead and
go
yeah.
do all that." So like, what do you say to someone that like looks at it and is like, "Well, clearly God's to blame for this suffering"?
So I gotta be honest, this was the turning point, I feel, in my, perception of God, I think, because I guess growing up, whether, Sabbath school or what your parents tell you or whatever, it's almost like, God is this superhero almost that like comes in with the cape when everything's all wrong. You say your prayer or, like take it to the Lord in prayer, whatever that thing is. It's like, ask God what you need and he'll provide whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, he comes in, saves the day type of thing. But then I think when I actually started learning more about God and I started reading a lot of these Bible stories, I was like, I don't really know if like that was like very much how God is.
Right.
And
Is that
then
fully accurate?
yeah, and I started going through different stories, and then when I got to Job, I was like, okay, this sent me, bro. Like when I tell you this sent me, it was like, okay, you see all the other stuff, and people that were faithful, but then things happened or situations that God may have either allowed or whatever. But then this story, I was like, wow. And I think it wasn't until I heard this sermon, and I think the reason why it hit me was because it was a pastor coming from the angle of like, God, like, how could you? And I think that was because that was the space I was at. It was like, so what you're saying is like, by me doing everything right with God, like this is what could possibly happen for God to almost like, almost like prove like, hey, like he's a good servant. Like he will do whatever, he won't curse me and those kind of things.
Right.
But then this pastor, he was like, when I first read this story, I'm gonna be honest, I was like, man, that was foul. Like he said it just like that. And I was dying, bro. I was dying. I was like, wow, like you actually got what I was saying. Yeah. You actually got what I was saying. But then I guess he kind of broke it down and he was saying, everybody, it may take them time to get here. And I feel like even for me, it's still taking me time to get there. But he was almost saying that God did it almost like in a way of showing, hey, if there's anybody that really is like loyal, like it's Job. And that's almost like the highest regard of if God feels that you're loyal or, like that you can go through whatever. And it wasn't per se, I guess, oh, I'm gonna just put you through like all this stuff, like just so I can get the accolades kind of thing. But almost that apparently is God's way of almost like to kind of show that, I trust you and I trust you so much and I believe in this kind of relationship that we have that you will do anything almost for me. And like this would almost prove it.
And what's crazy is he'll do that like, he knows this. He's like, I want you to know this. And the only way you're going to know this is if you go through it. So like, because otherwise you would, I couldn't tell you like, oh yeah, Brian, you can lose everything and still love me. You'd be like, I don't know about that.
Are you sure? Oh, let's test it out. Like, whoa. But it's like, y'all ever wondered like how the devil actually felt afterwards once he saw that Job didn't like curse God or anything, or he got double whatever he received afterwards? I wonder what the devil was going through.
You know exactly the picture that comes to my mind?
What picture?
y'all seen Hercules, right?
Yeah.
And you know when
when
Hades
Hades
gets
gets mad with Hercules.
and he just lights on fire. That's exactly what I picture. Like he does all this to Job, and Job
Right.
does nothing. He's like, oh my
He's so upset. You remember when the mountaintop like blew when he had on the air?
That's exactly what I picture. He's like, you know what?
I had enough.
I give
I had
up.
enough.
Like,
I give up. All right,
this
God, you
man
got
is not
it.
human.
Right, he was like, all right, God, you got it. Okay, I trust you.
That's literally what I feel like. That's how he felt. Let me read some comments because we got some good ones here so far. Sister Cardi says, before we start looking for someone to blame, we should examine ourselves. It may just be a test of faith and strength. Question is, am I strong enough in my faith? To further my statement is because I know about Job. Pastor Browner says it was Job's integrity that carried him through his suffering to trust God. He was not giving up his integrity, knowing how God was going to see him through. Carolyn asks a question. So then how do we determine if God is bragging on your relationship with him compared to you going through a test, or is that the same thing?
That's actually
So how do
is.
you know if God is bragging on you? Or if you're going through a test.
I feel like they both look the same though. They
Yeah,
come in the
yeah, in
same
a
package.
sense.
It would
They
come
would.
in the
Yeah.
same package almost.
And you know what is crazy? So you can only know that if you're on the outside. Like we know this about Job because we're on the outside. I don't
Right.
think he actually. And I mentioned this before.
Oh, go ahead, say
I
yeah,
mentioned this
yeah.
before on here. Like there was a pastor I talked about like the story of Job, and his point was like, I don't need closure, and he's like, that's the point where he wants us to get to as Christians, where we don't need answers for why, because Job never got.
He
an
never got
answer.
it, and we're only reading the
Yeah.
story. He never like God never told
He
him.
wasn't
Right,
like,
right.
oh, Job, actually, my bad about all that. You know, the devil
Right.
was he was talking crap about you. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
Nah, he never got that.
Right.
Like he did bless him
Wow.
in the end, like way
Tenfold,
more than he had
right.
before,
Yeah.
which is great. But like he never,
He still never got the
an
closure.
answer.
Right.
And sometimes it's
That's
gonna be like that.
crazy.
You know, you're just
Right.
gonna go through something, and like God, you have to believe that God is doing something. It may not make sense. It may be a cockamamie plan, but like
Right.
he's doing something. And that takes a lot of faith.
Right.
But
I'm sure Joe might ask that question. When
Yeah,
he
I'm
gets
sure.
to heaven. I was like, God, you know
Listen,
that one
listen.
time-
as soon as he
Why
gets to that
was
gate,
that-
he'll be like, yes, I'm here. So God.
So God, about that situation where I lost my wife, my kids, you know, everything. Like, what was going on?
You know, for real, that is tough for real. Though.
Yeah.
It's a tough space to get to, and I feel like it's gonna be that's a lifetime trying to get to that space. Honestly, 'cause that's not natural at all.
And-
like we want closure in little things, much less something like
Something like
big
that in that time
you know?
frame. Like
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
minutes, like everything just,
Yeah.
his whole world collapsed in a matter of like a few hours.
Right.
And you know, I'm not gonna hold you. The reason why I think this story always sticks out to me is because I think, and this is another thing of, you know, realization about the Christian walk, right? Now, of course, you know, I totally, you know, appreciate, you know, all the people that have, you know, fed into me as growing up and those kind of things. But I feel like, you know, I've always almost been like trained to think this idea of, you know, if you know, do the right thing, you know, whatever that path is that your parents may tell you, you know, you do this, you do that, and then, you know, you have a good life and, you know, good things will happen, those kind of things. That's not saying that those things can't happen, but I think, like, when I read certain stories like this, or, you know, let's say things that happened like Stephen or Paul, those other type of people that were like the diehard fans for God, that like did like the stuff that people like never could imagine to do. Their life wasn't the, you know, like almost like what we would hear of, you know, keep God in your life and, you know, pray and have a relationship with him, you know, things are gonna go well. And that's not saying that, you know, you can't have a great life, but I think this changes the dynamic of what the Christian walk is, and are you really down for what it takes to be in it, even if the bad things come, or when my book is showing you all these people that are being tested down to, let's say, Job,
Right.
or I know we're gonna get to Hosea, or all these other people where it's like, you know, at least in Job's scenario, he got doubled.
Right,
Paul didn't get doubled.
Yeah, he
right.
sure did. That's
Right.
true.
Neither did Stephen, like getting stoned or those kind of things. So it's like, I think that is a different realization that I've had. And I think it's eye-opening to kind of shift how we maybe even talk about the Christian walk or, even life itself. It's like, hey, like how they say, it's a war or whatever, how we're like born into this war. It's like, if we go based on what it says in the Bible and those kind of things, it's like we also have to treat life almost in that kind of lens and not just that, you kind of like can have this perfect path and things can go well when it's like the Bible doesn't really show us that. You know what I mean?
That's very true. Yeah.
This is why we're the whole truth. The whole truth. That's this series. Since you brought up Hosea, let's get into this one.
Oh my.
So again, I'll give a little breakdown here for Hosea. So Hosea is one of the minor prophets in the Bible. His story is basically God comes to him and he tells him, actually, I have it written here. It says, this is Hosea 1, verse 2. When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, this is the Bible, y'all. Go and marry a prostitute so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution.
Nah.
I think you need to repeat that because I think this is the area in the Bible that we don't hear about a lot. It's just glossed over, but it's like, oh.
God told me to go marry a prostitute.
Did he really?
Imagine going up and like doing a testimony in church and saying that.
You'd be like, you are a liar. That was the devil. That was the devil.
That wasn't God.
Right.
Not my God. No, literally speaks to him, go and marry a prostitute so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. Why? This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods. Right? Now, you might already be like, this is insane.
Yeah.
But it gets deeper.
Yeah.
Right? So this dude is forced, he's a prophet, right? So that's like your pastor.
Yeah.
Being like, bringing a prostitute, you're like, this is my wife, right? Then now, imagine your pastor marries this prostitute. You're like, this guy's nuts. The wife goes back to prostitution.
Oh, yeah.
Leaves him.
Yeah.
And, goes back to the whorehouse. She's doing her thing over there. Then, in our head, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Who told you to marry this prostitute? Right? You already had to convince people one time, like,
Here we go, bro. Here we
God
go.
told me to marry.
Here we go.
Right.
Yeah.
She leaves. People are like, oh yeah, God told you, right?
Yeah.
And then here comes God again.
Yeah.
Hosea 3, verse 1.
I'm so glad you brought that
Then the
in.
Lord said to me,
So glad.
go and love your wife again.
Oh, no.
Even though she commits adultery with another lover. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and love to worship them.
Okay. Well, before you go on, I just want to paint this picture because I already know some people are already like, I'm not talking about the young people, but I'm already seeing it.
Oh my goodness.
I want people to think of this story not as what the lesson was, right?
Right.
Because I feel like
Think
that's
about
the
if this
first thing everybody wants to think, oh, well, he obviously was doing it to show the relation, the
Exactly.
comparison between
But in
Israel.
that moment, you're not
But it's
going
like,
to know
let's
that.
be
Yeah,
honest,
let's be
right?
honest. If God were to say that to us right now, we would be like, what?
I'm gonna do what? Yo, for me, it's the second part though, because I'm
Yes,
like,
that's what had me too.
Okay,
I'm
go
like,
back to her.
yeah, go back to her.
I tried my best, God. Like, I done married her, right? And this clip, that must have felt like it blew up in your face, right?
Yeah.
Like, God, I did what you said, bro. She's back at the. Are you kidding me? Like, you told me to go. I didn't want to go marry her. Like, I look like Boo Boo the Fool. I told everybody that you told me to marry this person. Like, I'm picturing that conversation with God right now. Like, God, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then his answer is, go get her.
Yeah.
Go get her and love her again.
And here's the thing. This is what actually was kind of crazy because that's why I'm so glad you hit the verse 3 of like, go get her again, because I actually read this week because I was like, I knew there was something else to this story that like sent me. And it was like the next verse. He was like, so I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lekel of barley. And that moment, it was like, okay, so not only this is how I think, right? I'm like, okay, God, if you want me to like go be back with her,
Right.
at least like you gotta at least like bring her like halfway or something, right?
Right.
Or at least have her in the mindset like, okay, you know, like I need to be faithful. And then I'm reading this, it's like, no, he had to literally like buy her as if she's still a prostitute.
Right. She
And I'm like,
change and come
what?
back
Oh
to
my
you.
God.
So it's like, and then like
rough.
next on the story is like him like saying that he's like telling her, hey, you know, for these next couple of days, like I don't want you to be a prostitute. Like I want you to just be like more or less like my husband.
Wife,
Oh, sorry, my wife.
wife.
Yeah, I'd be like my wife. And that for me, it was like, wow, like he literally
Seriously.
not only is going through, and I'm like, the Bible, it's funny, the Bible doesn't say all of the, I'm guessing what the town was talking about, right? Or I'm guessing maybe like his parents or all those other kind of things. But just imagining him going through that, I'm just like, wow,
Yeah, nah.
that's crazy.
No. All right. Let's see. Do we have any newer comments here? Did something happen with the stream? I don't know. I haven't seen anything come in. Okay. Yeah, no.
What
I wanna get to that, man. I wanna get to what you said.
about what I said?
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have anything to say?
Brian pretty much covered
Yeah.
everything. To be
That
honest,
is-
you
I'll tell
felt really
you.
passionate about that.
No, because it's because when I read this story,
Mm-hmm.
it like pushed me so far out of my whole. Because like I said, like I only viewed God of like, hey, you know, you pray with him, like you pray to him, and it's like, you know, like your wants and your needs, those kind of things.
Exactly,
But
right.
never did I picture like, could God really tell somebody to do something crazy like that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that shifted it. So then it kept me intrigued. And then when I went back to this verse, when you first talked to me about like being on the show, I know you never said Hosea, but that was the first person that came to my head.
telling
Because
you,
I was
yeah.
like, okay, obviously Job, but Hosea, I was like if there's anybody that went through the gutter, I was like, it was him. Because, you know, Job, he got it back like
Right.
2 times.
Right.
But he went to the grave with everybody like, oh yeah, that Hosea.
That guy's nuts.
Yeah, he's nuts. God told him to marry a prostitute? Like, okay.
Man.
So I was like, wow.
Yo, literally. So what I did not realize until I looked at this was that each time he told him to do something, he's telling Hosea, like, this is going to illustrate. So he didn't get anything back. But what's different about this from Job is that he knew the purpose. Job just went
That's
through it.
true.
And at the end,
That's
thank God
true.
he got stuff back. Hosea
That's
didn't
true.
get anything back, but God, he gave him the crazy command, and he's like, this is going to illustrate X.
Wow.
Right? Then he told her, hey, go get her back. This is going to illustrate X. Right? And so the thought that came to me was like, dang, like, am I willing to be an illustration?
Because both of those situations are.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, like, we go through suffering, right? And in this case, Hosea went through suffering to illustrate something on God's behalf.
Yeah.
And am I willing to go through some suffering,
Right.
not because I did something wrong,
But as an
but
illustration.
just so that I could be an illustration for someone else to get something out of it?
Wow.
For God to be glorified.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm saying, I'm like, having that mindset, I think is
Yeah.
where we're probably supposed to be on, like, I guess the Christian walk. But I think that's where I was saying, I'm like, that's what blew like my mind when I read these stories. Because I'm like, either we're going about this thing wrong,
The wrong way.
or
Right.
apparently God only moved this way back then.
then.
And clearly, I don't think that. But I'm like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it's a tough thing to think, but I think the closest thing I come to thinking about when it comes to stuff like this is when you hear those testimonies of like people that are doing well in their life, and then they're saying like, oh yeah, God told me to leave everything behind and do this, right? And I'm like, okay, we're seeing the end result of that. Like whatever God did tell him to do, it became like a success. They're like helping a lot of people, like whatever it is now. But like in the beginning, that must have been really rough. You know, like you didn't have much to your name. You know, you were in a new place. You know, like for example, people that like dentists or doctors that like they have their own practice and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, God told me to like sell my practice, leave it all behind, and then become a medical missionary. You know, so it's like you were living in this affluent, nice life, and all of a sudden you're in Africa and
like the
you've got
slums.
nothing, right?
And, like,
but you're just
yeah.
helping people. You know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all their family and friends are like, even some of these people with families and like, you're gonna do what now?
Yeah,
Right,
are you
like,
dumb? Are you dumb?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that I feel like that's the closest I can think of to an example. And I'm like, it must be pretty crazy. But
Yeah.
at the end, those people, they come back with crazy testimonies, you know,
That's true.
that they would not have had, and like their relationship with God is at a whole different level because of their obedience, because they
true.
were willing to suffer for a while to get something out of it, you know.
That's true. And you know, I think you made a really great point, and it made me realize, you know, for the people that think that God only speaks or does things in one way, I think this story showed like there is not one like, oh, you know, God only talks this way, or he only lets you know but this amount of information, or you know. So I think that was almost eye-opening when you kind of said, you know, Hosea, he got the explanation, but he didn't really get maybe like the return on investment where it's like, oh, you know, the happy ever after where she's perfect and everything's good. But, you know, Job, it's like, I went through all of this and then I lasted, have no idea why, but I got everything back.
Exactly.
And then we never know that in the story where it's like, it doesn't say this, but I'm sure for the rest of his life, he still, though he had everything back, I think we always look at it like, oh, you know, he got everything back in the end. But it's like, let's be honest. Like, if you lost, let's say, your kids and all these other things, that doesn't just go away. You know what I mean? And then if God is,
pain right there.
you know, and then if God is, let's just say, didn't give him that, you know, closure or whatever per se, but we have it. I'm just like, wow, it's really crazy.
Yeah. Honestly. So let me read this comment first. So Stephen says, I look at it as Paul, Job, Hosea, and Stephen were some of God's closest friends, and these were the people he entrusted the most to spread his word, to show what true faith is and how hard it is, but doable. You know, so those are like, you know, I like that. Those are like the high ups in the company. Is like, hey, I'm giving you this tough task because I can't trust, you know, someone that's lower in the company. I got to give it to like my exec, you know, my chief operating officer over here, you know. But I like that, Steven. I like that. Oh, hold up. You got more. He says, so people wouldn't have the excuses that Jesus was able to endure because he was sent from heaven, but other human beings are capable of that faith too. I like that. That's key. That's key, because I do say that sometimes. I'm just like, you know, but Jesus went through this, but he was Jesus.
He was
you know?
Jesus,
Like, oh, okay, he was fully God, but fully man, but he was still Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Like, he's showing that, other people that were fully human did go through some crazy stuff. And they were able to endure it.
Can I pose a question to you guys?
Yeah.
And even like to you guys as well. You know, the last comment that you said, can you read it again one more time?
Which one? This last part from Stephen?
No, the one before.
Before that. So he said, I look at it as Paul, Job, Hosea, and Stephen were some of God's closest friends, and these were the people he entrusted the most to spread word and to show what true faith is and how hard it is, but doable.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what would you say, and I will even get, you know, personal. I think that turning point for me, I heard that from somebody, and that was, I didn't feel reassured by that. You know, I didn't feel reassured knowing that, okay, so what you're saying is almost like, because God may, you know, entrust me, or I'm giving my all or whatever, that means that I may have to go through things that other people don't, right? Or my tests may be, you know what I mean? Like whatever scale it is, harder, whatever type of thing. And I think, what would you say to those people when they get that realization of, okay, this is what it is. What's the positives? What's like the, you know, the mindset to kind of have with that, you know? And that almost goes back to what we were talking about, like the leadership thing. It's like, you know, I don't want to do this, but it's like, in this scenario, it's almost like heaven or hell kind of thing, or whatever, to kind of, you know, keep that relationship with God. So what would you kind of say to that?
So that stuff, I do see your point there. Like that does flash my mind, or like, God, well, maybe we don't need to be that close. You know, like, that's what it means. You know, maybe we could just be cool. You know, but no, I get it. But the thing is, like, God always wants the best, right? So, and that's why I asked that question, like, are you okay being an illustration? Because it almost does seem like what's the guy? You're just kind of like using me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm just this illustration that got to go through this tough stuff. Like that is a little. It can feel a little like belittling, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, or that you're just being like used.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it comes down to like your relationship, right? So like this is a tough one. For all the things God provides and for the crazy love that he shows, he only asks for you to love him back, right?
Okay.
That's it. So yeah, he put you through some stuff, but everyone's going through stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how I look at it is like, all right, if I'm gonna go through suffering, regardless, because it's not like, oh, if I, like what I said, like, oh, like, could we just be cool guys so I don't have to go through? Like, there's people that don't know God at all, and they're still going through stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if I apparently to be alive, I'm gonna be going through stuff, I'd rather go through it with him. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, it's gonna suck, but at least in this scenario, I can know that there is a reason. I may not know what it is, but I'm going through this for a reason. Hopefully it's for my betterment. Hopefully I come out on the other side with everything back. You know, maybe he's using me. I don't know, but there is a reason. It's not just like nonsensical suffering. Because I feel like that would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's why I can't like let go of God, because I'm like, if I was just going through life and going through the craziness that I go through in life, and there's no reason for it, like, well, why the flip am I? Like, why?
Yeah, what is it for? What is it
like,
for?
why would I keep going? So that's what I would say. Like, yeah, I get that. That's a tough thought, a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But like, the alternative is that you just going through this for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's even worse.
Right.
You know?
And to add to that, I would say, what if we didn't have those examples as far as with Job and Hosea, as far as God knowing the beginning from the end, right? What if we, as Christians, going through this, what if these stories weren't in the Bible? How would we operate? How would we know?
We would seem like we're on an island.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
God gave those examples to touch the lives of millions of people, in my opinion. So we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now if these stories didn't exist.
Yeah.
So in a sense, we're getting these stories, and they had to go through that to save the lives of probably millions of people. Because if these stories didn't exist, maybe we would have lost a lot of souls in that process. So that's the way I kind of look at it. And also, I wouldn't say we have to go through some stuff in order to get something out in return, or for God to show us a teaching, because we've seen examples of people like Enoch where he lived the righteous life and God was like, hey, you know what? Come on up, bro. Like, I got you. Like, you don't got to go through nothing. Just come on up. And what is it? Who else got
Elijah,
Moses.
right, yeah. Some people just didn't really have to go through much.
Okay, well, Moses went through a lot. Moses went through a lot.
His blood pressure was
Right.
like,
I was like, what?
like,
Yeah,
Right.
That's
He
a
went
whole
through
nother
lot.
conversation.
Right.
That's a whole nother
But
conversation.
I was also speaking of Enoch. So he lived a great righteous life, and God was like, you know what? Come on up, bud. I got you.
He's like, listen, let me get a little lonely up here.
Right.
I need someone like you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me read some of these comments, and we're gonna move to our next segment here. So Steven said, the song I Give Myself Away has relevance. Our life is not our own. And if we rock with him, we allow him to use us in a way to help others. Yeah, like we were saying, yeah. Debbie says, crazy love. That's exactly what the story of Hosea is all about. Yeah, he's illustrating just like the craziness that we see what Hosea did. Is like, that's the craziness God's trying to like get us to understand. That's how much I love you. It does not make sense. It does not matter. Like, you look at Hosea crazy for marrying the prostitute in the first place, going back to her after she showed her true colors. How much more, like, do I love you? And like all the times that you go back, like all the times that I tell you to go left and you're like, absolutely, I'm going right. Like,
Right.
every single time, and I keep coming after you, you know, like that really is what it's all about.
Who do you love more? Do you love man more, or do you love God more?
Yeah. Stephen also says, your reassurance is promise that he is making a place for those who show their love and faith in him. Yeah. Like, people got to see the proper response to that. And it sucks to have to be the example.
Yeah,
But
that's the.
it does suck, but it's, you know, like, it's a responsibility that we definitely bear as Christians for sure. And honestly, even some people that aren't Christians, like, some of the struggles that they go through, I feel like I benefit from them too when, like, you hear about it after the fact. You know? So God doesn't
true.
only use Christians. Let's put that out there.
Yeah.
But so we talked about God a little bit longer than we were supposed to, but it's because he's so good.
Amen.
Let's talk about the devil, right?
No, brother.
So who's to blame for all my suffering? Could be God. You know, he is in control of everything, right? But there is this being, the devil, that, you know, was the originator in a sense of suffering. He's the first person that, you know, caused rebellion in heaven and you know, came to earth, tempted us, and now we're in the mess that we're in. How can we say that the devil is the cause of suffering?
By definitely tempting us into certain situations. Like, he'll be that bug in our ear to say, like, hey man, like, you know, just take it one more sip, one more her, and then, you know, you take that one more sip, that other drink, and then you get behind the wheel, and then the next thing you know, you fall asleep behind the wheel, endangering yourself or endangering other people as well, and, you know, ending up passing away in a car accident or something, right? And then you're gone.
Right.
So the devil can definitely take a hold of you going through certain things if you aren't wearing the whole armor of God.
For sure.
Yeah.
You were gonna say I was
No,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
something,
Go
but-
ahead.
all
Go
right,
ahead.
I feel like, and this is honestly a point against God in the sense of who's to blame for all my suffering, but I feel like the devil is like a tool. You're like, he usually is the one to carry out suffering, but it's usually under the God let him do it. Like, so even in the Job scenario,
He just,
God's like, yeah, go do
Like,
that.
I'll allow you to do
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
one thing he said, you just can't kill him.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, you know, God didn't cause the suffering, but he
didn't
allowed
stop
it to
it.
happen.
Or he
right?
didn't stop it either. Yeah.
And the devil is that, like, being that, like, that's what he is about. Like, the Bible says, like, you know, the devil's like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Like, whatever he can do,
Yeah.
He will do. Right.
he's gonna cause the most havoc that he can cause.
Yeah.
And like one of the slick things the devil does. There's this book. It's called A Trip into the Supernatural. If y'all look that book up and you want to read it, it's a great book. It's really small. Like, you can read it very quick. But this book was eye-opening. It's basically about this guy who was an atheist, and he got caught up in like real spirituality, like devil worship and all this stuff. He got caught up in all that, and he's giving his testimony of how he got caught up in it and how he got out of it. And the reason I really love that book is because he was showing a lot of the things that a lot of the devil's tactics. Like, and so one of them I always remember is so he was at one of the meetings with the people that are high up in this stuff, and he was like, so like, why is it that I think he asked, like, why is it that the devil is always trying to take himself out of things? Like, the devil doesn't want people to believe he exists and stuff, and so he in a lot of ways he allows people to believe he doesn't exist, because it's like he could just make himself very known, you know. But he doesn't want people to believe he exists, so that if there is pain or if there is suffering,
They know it's coming from him.
right, it's not coming from him. He doesn't exist. It must be coming from God, you know. So then that's where a lot of people who don't really know the full story, that's what they're gonna believe. They're like, yeah, the devil does, there's no guy with a pitchfork and yada yada. Like, no, that's God. God's the one screwing up my life, bro.
Right.
And I'm like, dang, that's so smart. That's like so smart. This guy, like, he doesn't do anything on accident. He very intentionally causes like suffering and pain. Like, he very intentionally causes us to like think certain ways. He very intentionally like does all things he does to try and like, and in the whole grand scheme of things, he's just trying to hurt God, you know. And to hurt God, he's like, oh, I'm just gonna hurt what you love, us,
Pretty much.
yeah. I feel like that's the devil's main goal. So you could say he is.
Well,
to
like, he's
blame.
part of the suffering.
Yeah, he's causing suffering to hurt God. You know?
And then people are blaming God in that process.
Exactly. Let me read some comments. Kathleen says, our Heavenly Father measures and weighs every child before he permits it to come upon the believer. He considers the circumstances and the strength of the one who is to stand under the proving. And that's definitely true. And that kind of falls into, I think, what Steven said earlier, how like, he gives it to his best friends because he like knows this is what they can handle. Brother Clark says, remember Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. From Noah to Joseph to Daniel to Hosea, what God allows us to go through usually makes no human sense. It's true. Yeah. It doesn't. That verse is like, oh, my ways are above your ways, my thoughts are above your thoughts. Like he knows more than us. Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. Plain and simple. We played the blame game, guys.
I was gonna say, yeah.
We've blamed God, blamed the devil, but even if saying like the devil is the originator of sin, in a sense it's true, but it can really come down to
Choices. The choices that we make.
That's true.
We can be the cause of our own suffering. In a sense, Adam.
I was gonna say, could we start there?
Like he sinned first, and that has led us to the mess that we're in right now.
Well, Eve.
Could be.
I mean, who ate first?
But remember, nothing didn't happen until after Adam ate the forbidden fruit, right?
But that didn't mean
We
nothing.
don't know that.
That don't mean nothing
we don't
was
know
gonna
that.
happen.
That's
the
true.
original sinner was Eve.
Eve.
The
Yeah,
very
yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, on Earth, yes. So
Yeah.
But
Okay. I'm gonna say this, right? I don't know how much but I've always heard this story that they're like, okay, if Adam
would have didn't eat.
wouldn't have eaten, of course, God would have just given him somebody else or whatever, those kind of things. Like I always heard, but I could see a part of your point where I feel like he maybe prolonged it out, obviously, to see what Adam would do. But I think it's funny. Me and Steven literally had this conversation last week. It was like, okay, but let's be honest. If you were in his position, and it's good because we're all guys here. Like, mind you, there's nobody else on this earth, right? And all you're doing is surrounded by just animals.
That's true.
And of course, at that time, there was I guess they all had their own, their pairs or their whatever. And it's like, oh, wow, I finally got a girl. I finally got somebody that looks like me. I'm sure it didn't just happen from the minute she was made. It happened maybe the next day. In my I guess, imagination, they, probably built a relationship,
Right.
working on stuff, doing things together. And then it's like, oh, wow, so this apple now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would even ask you, if we're going to think of the blame on ourselves, do you feel like you would have done something different in Adam's scenario?
That's a very good question.
Because I think that's where it starts from.
Yeah. And you're right. We have extra knowledge now.
Yeah.
But all Adam knew was,
his wife.
I knew none of these
Right.
animals.
Yeah.
I knew none of these animals were my mate. So God puts me to sleep and gives me an equal. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And after I've built this life with her, she's apparently gonna die now, because that's what God said. I don't know if she's still alive. She's still got the apple. She's still alive, but I'm not trying to be alone again.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
I never thought about the toughness of that situation that Adam was in.
Yeah.
I might have joined her. I don't know. I don't know that I would be alone.
I
again.
don't know. That's tough, Ryan.
Yeah.
But why I say that? I say that because, and I think it wasn't until the conversation me and Steven had, it almost makes you think I probably would have did the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're going to come from that point of view, I think when it comes to the blame game, the whole sin thing, it's oh, well, because of Adam and Eve, da-da-da-da-da. That's why we have this. And then from there, of course, you could blame God or the devil for the everyday things, whatever. But technically, the whole sin thing and why we're going through a lot of it is because of that You know what I'm saying? Like, because of what happened there. So I think when you think, I guess, at least from that perspective, it takes some kind of blame. It still is annoying because I still say it all the time. I'm like, I don't think it's fair that I have to, per se, go through this because of what someone else did. You know what I mean? Like, I get the aspect of like, hey, you know, we still have a choice to like make it to heaven, but I'm like, but we didn't have like the perfection and then a choice and then it went bad. You know what I'm saying? Like we were born and it was just bad. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Born in sin and shit.
Yeah. So, but I think when you put yourself in his place, it gives a little bit more of a.
You have a little more sympathy.
Yeah, like you look at the situation a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That's very true.
I'm gonna keep going from where you just left off, but I want to read some comments first. Danielle said that's where you have to trust God. Before there was Eve, it was just him, meaning Adam. But of course, the human mind goes to thinking the worst and automatically assumes once she's gone, we'd be alone. But why not think God will provide someone else? Yeah, but that's hindsight talking.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like it's easier to say that. I feel like it's easier to say that.
This girl gonna die.
Yeah.
Take us both.
I was like, what if he pulled like a Romeo and Juliet? What if, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we look at the story of, you know, maybe he was, you know, tempted to, or like, you know, but what if he in his heart was in that way? It's like, you know, I don't want to live without her.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, okay, well, you know, whatever is the worst that's going to happen to both of us. I mean, at least we'll both be together.
At least we'll be together.
Yeah.
Man, maybe Adam had true love. Steven says, I think I would have failed. I feel that. Based on some personal experience, all we can do is try to better with the extra knowledge we have now. All we can do is try to do better with the extra knowledge we have now.
Yeah.
Danielle says a lot of times we think we do something different because we know how it ends. Exactly.
Yeah.
But if and when we're in those situations, we do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Carolyn said, so Andre would die with Eve. But wouldn't stay married to his cousin. That's
So they coming.
you gotta pump
that's
out
a
like
good
that.
point.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. I know there's other people out there now. That's why I can't stay with the cousin.
Man.
If I was Adam, I wouldn't know that there's other people. It's just Eve.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's true.
That's hilarious.
But now, going off what you said, Brian, like how it's like not fair, you know, of what we go through. That brings me to where I want to go next, because in that sense, you know, Adam was far off, right? Dude was the original guy, and we're dealing with the effects now. But what about the people that want to blame their parents, or like, you know, I feel like a lot of people that go to therapy, they'll tell you that like they found out that their upbringing was the reason why they're going through certain things, or why they're shaped a certain way, or like, you know, the way they think. Like I feel like a lot of times it goes back to that, and it could be that maybe you're going through certain suffering because
The parents.
your parents.
Oh
you know,
my.
we know generational curses are a thing, right?
Yeah.
The Bible talks about that. So what would you guys?
You want to take that one? I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. But I just want to.
I mean, generational curses are definitely a thing, and we've kind of seen that. And I think it's up to that generation within then to kind of break that suffering, right? Because we may not know what our great grandparents did and far back did, but you in this generation now, it's up to you to kind of break that in that process. And even going to say some of the things that I would say even our parents might have done. For example, right? We might not want to do a specific, I guess, job that they want, right? Like, career. That's the word I was looking for. A specific career, right? So it's either doctor, lawyer, engineer, or disappointment. So I would say, looking at it from a different angle of our parents even causing us, I guess, in some kind of suffering, we kind of have to pull ourselves away from that to do the things that we kind of enjoy as far as like a career path, right? So even if they might not like it and you go down this path and it leads you into you being miserable, you being depressed, you being not able to fully enjoy your entire life because you went down this path that your parents kind of chose for you and not necessarily the path that God chose for you and something that you wanted to do in your life, right? So I would definitely say in that process, our parents can even lead to our children's own, not demise in a sense,
defeat
but
or something.
Their right,
Kinda,
their
yeah.
demise in
Yeah.
a sense, and their suffering of how they go through certain things in life, and also not really showing them certain things in life as well. Like, hey, there's more than one way to get to a goal, and there's more than one way for your child to be successful. And I think if a lot of more parents kind of realize that, then there will be a lot happier and healthier parent to child relationships. So, and then it goes back to, okay, so your parents and their parents, how was their relationship?
Yeah.
So it's someone has to kind of make that cutoff, right? So
Someone's got to make the change.
right, someone has to make the change. So what I try to do with my children, if I don't necessarily like the career path they go down, hey, that is their choice.
Yeah.
I would just say, hey, make sure you consult God on this. Choose a path that you want to do, and of course consult God in. And if they don't like it, then of course they're going to learn that lesson, right? So I would say it's easier to learn that lesson in that process than hearing it from someone else. Because let's be honest, right? Our parents told us, hey, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. What do we do? Touch the stove, right?
Absolutely right.
But after we touched it, did we touch it again?
Nope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once we learn that lesson, I feel like we have to go through that lesson sometimes to actually feel it, to really understand what we actually went through. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many ways you can go with this.
There is.
Like
So
as far
that's
as
why my
like
brain
the
was like-
parents and you know, let's say like the suffering. I think. Wow. Okay, so I feel like in the context of, I guess, suffering and like what we personally go through, right? Of course, whatever upbringing you have, you know, like you're gonna go through some things, even if you have the greatest parents or not, you know, like you're not going to agree with them. You're not going to see eye to eye, but there's other people that, you know, they actually have bad environments. You know what I mean? Like they go through things that not the average kid or whatever goes through. Right. And I think something even more when we're bringing all this, it almost leads me to feel like, I feel like almost everybody has a part to play.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if that was where this was supposed to end off, but I feel like when you look at just the topic of suffering, like, I feel like there's like a whole, you know, like circle of like people that can be shown in some way that not like, oh, like you're the main one to blame or this or that, but I feel
There's
like,
people's hands in
yeah,
it.
you know, like for instance, like you can wake up in the morning and, you know, you walk downstairs and you can get into it with your parents, right? But then you can go outside and someone cuts you off and then you're mad at that person. So it's like, you already have two people to blame for your quote unquote suffering or why you're in a bad mood or upset during the day. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like when it comes to like parents, I think there's just multiple ways you can look at it, like the physical, like, you know, like people that go through abuse, those kind of things. You can look from it like a mentally of, you know, still abuse, like mental abuse, or even like mindset where, you know, sometimes, you know, because you grow up thinking one way based on how your parents taught you, it can be, okay, well, maybe that works for you in your generation, but when I use that same approach or applications, it wasn't practical for this now. You know what I mean? For the generation we live in now. So I think there's multiple, you know, angles of it. But yeah, bro, I just think you just hit almost like, I feel like everybody got a part to play in it, you know?
Everybody got a part to play. Let me read this comment. Steven says, I think we need to stop blaming altogether and deal with the hand we've been dealt because we can't change the past.
Respect.
This is a sinful world, unperfected, so nothing is going to go the way we want.
That is true.
It says it doesn't mean it determines who we are or who we can be, though.
Yeah.
And that's definitely true. Like I consider myself a realist. So a lot of situations that like what happened to me, I'm like, it's already happened. Like literally my favorite line from Lion King.
There we go.
Bro, is Rafiki, bro. When he slapped Simba on the head and he was like, it doesn't matter. It's in the past.
Really?
Because that's what I want to do to a lot of people. Like,
Really?
a lot of people like will like vent to me or complain to me. And at some point, I just want to slap them on the head, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, it already
Right.
it already happened. Like, let's focus on the next step, the future part that we can actually
Yeah.
change, you
Right.
know? But like, I get it. It is a natural response to be in that space, but like, you want to train yourself more and more to not stay in that space. Like,
Yeah.
have that space, but then transition out of it.
Yeah.
Because once you're in that space, you cannot change anything focusing on like, oh, how sucky the past was. Doesn't matter. It already happened. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? How do we go to the next phase?
To
Yeah.
add just a little bit on that, one of my mentors kind of told me, you have to learn how to control the controllables. Kind of like what you said in the past. You cannot control the past. So
Yeah.
the only thing you can control is the present and the future. So once we learn how to control the controllables, then you can kind of step forward and move forward and controlling and moving forward with the cards you're dealt with in that process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, that ties perfectly to the last thing I wanted to say about the generational curses thing, because I heard a pastor mention this. I don't remember which pastor it was, but he was basically saying like, when people talk about generational curses, the verse they always bring up to like prove that it even exists is the verse like Exodus 34:7, and it says, "Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin, by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation." So that part was like, oh, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children. That's where like, oh yeah, you know, the father's sins become the son's sins.
Yeah,
become their
yeah,
sins.
yeah.
And like that was the basis for like generational curses. And there's definitely examples of that happening. Like, you know, like David definitely struggled with his temptation with women.
Yeah.
And Solomon, oh my God, with like 100 or whatever wives.
Yeah,
Like, we
900,
see,
right?
yeah, we see that, okay, it definitely does exist.
Yeah.
But his point was like, the wording of this verse was very intentional, because it says visiting the iniquity, right? So it's like the iniquity that keeps being passed down is a visitor. And he's like, I don't know about you, but if someone comes and visits my home,
They don't have to stay.
I'm in
Yeah,
control of
I'm
how
in
long
control.
they stay.
That's
right?
good, that's
I can
good,
kick them
that's
out.
good. Control.
So like
That's good.
controlling the
That's
controllables, yeah,
good.
I may not be able to control the fact that this is going to be a temptation for me,
Yeah.
or that this is something I might have to go through, but I can control how long it stays there. I can't control like my mindset in this. I don't have to go down the exact same path. I don't have to like struggle with whatever it is for as long as my father did and their father did, you know. I can't, like, there's something in there that you can control, because this is just a visitor,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And when he said like that, I was like, that's true, and like that
Right.
gives you hope in the situation,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
It sucks to be a participant in a generational curse, but like there is a part that you can control, and there is hope for you in that situation.
Yeah.
All right. So I think this is all I want. I think we've done enough blaming. I think we can agree more or less that there's multiple factors when it comes to like
Yeah.
who's to blame. Like, you know, even if you want to say, oh, I'm gonna blame one thing, it might be sin. Like, because sin's in the world,
Right.
then like there is suffering. That's just what comes with it, and suffering by all different hands. But by God's own hand, by the devil's hand, our parents' hand, our own hands.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible says we reap what we sow. Like, if we do something, you know, setting up ourselves up for consequences are gonna
Right.
come. You
Yeah.
know? So there's many things at hand, and we can't control what happens to us, the suffering that happens to us. If we could, I'm not going to choose to suffer.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Who?
exactly.
Not me.
So, like CJ said, the only thing we can control is like how we react in this situation. And I will say like that's much easier said than done.
Right.
But there are tools at your disposal. You know, God, he never like lets someone suffer in isolation. Like, he's always there. He always does. Like, his love never departs from you. Brother Clark, that verse that he said, everything that works together for those that love God and are called according to his purpose. So like, you're not alone in that situation. You definitely want to have God at your side. And if you do have people in your circle, I think you'd be surprised to find how many of us are going through similar things. I think that was one thing that was very eye-opening for me when COVID first happened. I don't know why. Around that time, I feel like I started having a lot of real conversations about just like how we're really doing, you know. And I found out like, oh, like I'm not a lot like a lot of things that I'm struggling with, or like that I'm like I'm thinking to myself, where I'm like, oh, I'm not crazy. Like other people are thinking these things too. So if you have people that you can reach out to, so that you know that you're not alone. You know, some people may have been there before or are currently in a similar situation, and you can kind of like help each other through that situation.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say to pray for who you can talk to, because you can't talk to everybody about your problems, or about what you're going through. But God definitely has people in everybody's lives that He's put there specifically to help you. So if you ask Him, He'll show you who those people are.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad you came back to that, because I was gonna say that I think there is a space where I think everybody needs to have these realizations of, you know, the blame game. Yes, you don't want to stay in that, but you need to understand, like, okay, we all know, okay, the Adam and Eve, that's that, like, but I think there is more to the story. Like I was saying, like, seeing that there's things that God has his hands in, right? That was something, at least for me growing up, I never knew. So when I first read the Bible, I guess like years later, it was like, this is not the God I felt like I heard about or knew about all my life, right? And then, you know, even like, let's say for how we say the whole devil thing, right? I feel like we give him so much more credit
than he deserves.
Than he does. And that's what I was saying. Like all my life, I thought God was like just this superhero. It's like saving everything that the devil does wrong. It's like, okay, let me go fix that. Let me go fix that. And I feel like even with the realization that, hey, you know, God sometimes will
put us through.
Yeah, like put us through certain things. Not that he just allows things. Like sometimes he will actually like orchestrate or like whatever things to kind of that may come across as wrong. It can be, okay, hey, you know, like you're actually doing really good. Bad things may be happening, but it's because you're actually doing really good, and I see the value in our relationship. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is like a perspective that you need to have, because when you're going through bad things, you can see it not just from the, okay, in Job's, what did I do wrong? Or when other people are talking or like, oh, maybe God couldn't have said that. You know, you're looking at all these other perspectives of not just the stories, but just how God doesn't just move in one way. So yeah, I just feel like that's super important to like know and think about.
And to kind of touch on what you just said, it's like, you know, when you're at work and you're doing very well at your job, what do they do, right? Give you more responsibility and more work.
That's how it goes.
Like, man, you are killing it, Andre. You know what? Here are 50 more files for you to do each day. It's like, why am I getting more work because I'm doing good?
So should I do bad?
Right? No, that's it. But it's like kind of like what you were saying. Like, hey, God is actually, I wouldn't say, God is giving me a test because He know I'll get through it and do better or gain more insight, or to teach a lesson, right? To gain more faith or to strengthen your faith, because He know you will get through it and have that, go through that test, and to give that testimony to even save someone's life.
Yeah.
And to go on what Andre was speaking about earlier, if we really rely on ourselves, we'll take that power away from God. And it's like you get, you know, kind of bloated and big-headed, and then God is like, "Hell, hold up, pump the brakes. Let me sprinkle this in here." It's like, "Whoa, God, I need you right now." Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, right? So you do need you, right? Let me refocus you. So we kind of have to pull the reins in and say, "Okay, God, all of my help does come from you. Thank you for the reminder."
Truly. All right, let's move to our last segment. We are going to the Talk to the Walk segment. And guys, we've actually been getting some really good responses in Talk to the Walk. So thank you for those that have put in submissions there. There's one that I saw that I was like, oh, we have to address this. There's a lot, and if one of yours doesn't get answered today, I'm sorry, but
we got it next time.
Yeah, we're gonna probably have to like start answering some of them on our Instagram or something, so we can make sure that they get answered, because we don't have all the time to do it now. But this one,
Well, remember, Shane also said that if they get enough, you guys can have a whole show
That's
for
true.
it.
We can do a whole show where we're just doing you guys' questions.
So send in more.
Yeah, send
Send
in
in
more.
more.
Send in more. And we actually, I was going to say this at the end, but I can say it now since we're talking about it. We have our own website now,
Okay.
thewalklive.org.
Okay.
So shout out
Walk
to Adrian
Live.
Francois. He designed the whole thing. It looks
Okay.
amazing. So you can go there. All of our episodes are posted there. Announcements are posted there. Upcoming events are posted there.
We got our cups too.
Right?
What?
Yeah.
Our nice cups.
The
The
walk.
walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got some swag now. You know?
Okay.
Gear.
You got some gear.
right. So this question came in. It was two separate questions, but they kind of tied together. So I want to pose these to you and our
Yeah.
audience. Help us out here. The person asked, "Can mental health be prayed away?"
Let's get it. Let's
And
get
someone
it.
else
You hitting it.
had
You
another
hitting
question
it.
that
You
says,
hitting it.
"I suffer from manic depression and anxiety. When I talk to the elders and pastors about it, the same answer is given: talk to God." So I think this is something that
I want to hear y'all first.
This is something that I feel like has been this is something that's happened in the church a lot.
Yeah.
Where people have very real problems and they feel like they're not getting real answers.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, I could have told myself to pray about
To
it.
pray.
You know, like
exactly.
I already know that.
Who's
part.
to say they already did do that?
Exactly. Like,
And actually, let me clarify something because I can already hear some other people where it's like, hey, you know, like nobody's saying that. I think it's not that prayer
Doesn't
No,
work.
doesn't
not-
work
not
or
downplaying
that
that
it may
at all.
not be the thing.
Right.
But I think it's more that not everybody's situation is that the minute it's prayed upon, it's instant healing, or
Right.
it's not something that it's a practical work through or something over time, or, you know, therapy or other things, other
Right.
ways where it's more than just the spiritual,
Aspect
get
of
on your
it.
knees
Right.
and then do that.
Yeah. I'll go first. So the first question was like, can mental health be prayed away? It's a tough thing to answer. I don't think so. I don't think prayer by itself is enough. There has to be action behind it. Just like if I pray that God will make me wealthy, but I don't do anything, I don't think I'm gonna get wealthy. So like,
Respect.
just like if I have, you know, if I'm going through depression, if I have like bipolar disorder, or if there's just something that my mental health is off, I don't think just praying about it is enough. Now, if it is, that's fantastic. You know, that is the ideal situation. But I don't know that all the time that is enough. And there are other things you can do. And I think some people aren't always, especially as Christians, we're not always as transparent enough to give people, one, those real options, or to two, explain that some of us have had these very same struggles and be real with people about like how we got through it. Because truth is, we didn't just get through
Pray
it
away.
by praying about it. You know,
Yeah.
like we had someone that we talked to and were able to like get through the situation together. Like there was things that we did to help. For the person that was, you know, that has depression and anxiety, I'm sure you've already talked to God about that.
Yeah.
I really am sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I fully believe that you've done that, and there's more that you can do. We'll talk about some of those things.
And definitely to piggyback off you, Andre, I agree with you. So it's not just something that can be prayed away. And I think in our community as Black and also Caribbean people, we need to take something as serious as this as mental health more seriously.
Yeah.
We'll just say, oh, talk to God about it or pray it away. Meanwhile, as you were saying, like you have to be more transparent. You have to be on the same level ground or let people know what you went through and how did you get through this experience at the same time, because they are suffering. Like depression
Yeah.
is real. Depression is very real. I'm in therapy right now for things that happened to me in my past and things that happened to me in the military, and it's very difficult. And you go through a lot. And I 100% agree. We need to have those open conversations in church when people are saying these things. We need to definitely have a more keen eye to know how to help people go through this process when it comes to depression and mental health.
Wow. Wait, was there like a specific comment you wanted to say, or do you want me to?
Oh, no,
go?
I'm just now looking at them. I'm like, oh, I haven't been looking at them for a
Do
second.
you want to do that and then? You
All
want
right,
me to
let me see. So Steven says prayer can help, but you gotta put in the work too. Sister Carter says prayer with patience. Maddie says I think prayer should be asking for the guidance and help, etc., to overcome mental illness, not just praying it away. That's a good point. Yeah, praying
that's
for like
deep.
what you
That's
need.
deep.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
deep.
Daisy Lynn McKenzie says when you pray, you need to have faith about what you're praying about. Danielle says I think the churchy answer is prayer. The churchy answer is prayer because mental health is not something they're used to dealing with.
Right.
So
There you go.
instead of saying nothing, the default answer is to pray.
Go ahead.
But she agrees at times there needs to be more practical answers.
Okay, so that was
Definitely.
exactly where I was ready to go.
Right.
Wait, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on saying this is why I believe God created, the space of having therapists and counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists to have in those fields to help you go through those situations.
Right.
Like Exhibit A, myself, right? So since I've been in therapy, dealing with the certain things I've struggled with, it actually has been a help, as tough as it has been. So I'm definitely gaining clarity, understanding, and feeling better about myself and being more comfortable in my own skin and working through the problems that I've had in the past. So yes, of course, I did pray about the situation that I was going through, but ultimately therapy has been the greatest decision I've made since going through what I've been going through.
And it's kind of funny how you kind of said that. It kind of reminded me of in one of like my favorite movies. It was literally, you ever watched The Pursuit of Happiness?
Yeah, Will Smith.
Yeah. So there's a part with his son, him and his son, and the son is like, he tells a joke. He's like, "Hey, Dad, there once was a little like a guy, and he was drowning in the ocean, and he prayed to God, and he was like, 'Oh God, can you please save me?' And a boat came by like 5 minutes later, and then he's like, 'Hey, you need some help?' He's like, 'No, God's gonna save me.' And then the boat goes by. Then like 10 minutes later, another boat comes by. And then he's like, 'Hey, like are you good?' And he's like, no, God's gonna save me. You're good."
Right,
and then it happened again. And then I guess like they're like,
passed
"Oh, like
away.
whenever he died and went to heaven," type of thing. They were like, "Oh,
Why did you?
yeah, why did he? He's like, why did you say it?" He's like, "Why did you get in the boat?"
And it's like,
So-
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No. But like, that's what I thought of when you said that. And number one, I also want to applaud you because this is the second time I heard you, open up about that. And I do want you to know, like, that is some people, like, they may not understand, what you're going through, but even just you putting that out there and like talking about, that you're going to therapy, even you just being a man, right? Like that's something that breaks certain boundaries.
Right.
Or, even just hearing it like a Christian point of view, that's something that is definitely like respectable. So yeah.
For sure.
And like when it comes to me, my opinion on I guess that whole thing, I see it both ways. So I see it that it can be prayed away and that in situations it isn't. And I'm gonna tell you why. Almost the same thing for, oh man, so much good stuff is coming to my head. Okay, so
Talk to him, Lord.
just like, for instance, like in the Bible, right? There were people that were healed automatic, like with Jesus, right? He was touched or whatever and it was healed, right? And then there's other people like Paul, where it's like the thorn or whatever in his side, or where it's like, "Hey, like God, can you please take this thing away?" And it's like, no. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And like, so I think that perspective, it shows that, there are people that I feel like they can go down to the altar and it can be we pray over him and that thing is gone, right?
Right.
But then I do think for a lot of other people, there is that thing like Paul, where it's like, "Hey, no, like this might be your battle you have to face for the rest of your life," right? And I think that for me, and I like Danielle's point, like about, kind of like that's something that needs to be talked about more, because I think that was always the thing, hearing when you grow up, it's like, pray about it or this and that. Totally understandable, agreeable, great, right? But there are still things that you need the practical applications to help you get through, and it's not always just going to be a cookie cutter, pray, it gets better, and it's perfect, right? And like, that's why I was so happy when I did read the Paul thing, because it made so much sense of like, hey God, you know, there's certain things I prayed about for years or for long periods of time. Like, why hasn't things changed? And I think, I'm gonna be honest, like there was one sermon I watched and it was talking about mental health. And the pastor, he was saying, I'm gonna be honest, like it really like had me I was broken down, like crying, because it was like I thought like this was not like how it was, because it was almost like, you know, I thought, you know, of course, you know, you could pray about it, like we always say, you know, you could pray about it, and you know, like in time it'll just go away. And I think he made a great point of, you know, sometimes you may have to go through that thing for the rest of your life, and can you be okay with that? That God may use you. Not everybody's story is always going to be you know, I struggled with this, I struggled with that. Not saying like the drugs and the other addictions, but like the other things, like, you know, some people like they have family problems. Like, you know, people are praying for their families, like, hey, you know, I want things to get better. Or, you know, the other things that aren't like vices or other things like that. That's not saying that God doesn't care about that situation or other things, but there are people where they may go through that thing for longer periods of time. And I think it goes back to your point, are you willing to be an example? And I think that is where that, like I said, like that changed the whole dynamic of what a relationship with God looks like, is because everybody in the Bible, I feel like it shows of them being, like we say, oh, you know, like these are the examples or this and that, but do we take what they went through to heart, like examples of what our life could play out, right? So I think that's where it's one of those things for me. It was like, you know, you may go through this or you may go through that. That's not saying that you may not, you know, you're saying like, oh, you're going to therapy and you're going to get healing, but for other people, that's not saying that, for instance, you know, this guy, he was talking about, you know, he's been through other like traumas, those kind of things, but because of therapy, it's helped him, but that doesn't mean that once in a blue moon, the thought doesn't try to come back, right?
Exactly.
Right. And I think that is a perspective or like a mind change where it's like, hey, you know, things could get better and can get better, but it still is a fight, or like you still have to do, like where you guys like the practical, you still have to do something on your part, whether even to maintain or to keep it up, you know? So I think that is like a whole aspect to think about. And for that person, like with the mental health, like you're not alone. Yeah, you're not alone.
You're definitely not alone.
You guys had great answers to that, honestly. I'm not even gonna keep going. I'm gonna go to the next question, because this is a good one too. So this person kind of wrote a good little explanation of what they're going through. So it says, can we talk about making friends as adults? This person is 34, single with no kids. She says, as an anxious introvert who hates small talk and thrives on deeper connection, it's always been difficult for me to make friends. But especially now as an adult, I've never had a lot of friends and hardly any SDA friends. I've been distant but not gone from church for a while, which is a whole nother conversation. But I have been recently feeling a strong desire to have more Sabbath-keeping friends. When I do occasionally show up at church, I go for service and then go home. There's no friend-making time. But even if there was, I'd probably avoid it. Again, I'm an anxious introvert. So I'm feeling a little stuck, and she's asking for advice on the situation.
Wow.
So our question, are you guys, do you feel like you would say that you're an introvert?
1,000%.
Okay, so then I was gonna say I would
1,000%.
want to hear from your perspective first.
For real, reading this, I related a lot to what she was saying. People don't think I'm an introvert, but I think I've
Evolved?
no, not even evolved. I've become a pretty good faker. Like, that's what I just realized. Okay, like I can't get through life as the way I'm going, so I guess I gotta pretend. But I feel like that takes a lot out of me, and like that is one of the things when it comes to introverts. Like social interactions drain. Like, you know, having to pretend to not be an introvert is draining.
Yeah.
So like I get what she's saying. When I was in dental school at UF, I felt that. Like I would go to certain churches, but I had no desire to stick around after church. Like I wasn't like, and then like, you know, I get it. Like you want to make friends, but then you also like, it's hard to do the work to make friends.
Yeah.
So like I get it.
Like a little awkward too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Because it's like, okay, I'm gonna hang around, and who's gonna talk to me?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like it's just really tough. And people who aren't like that, it's hard for them to understand because they'll be like, well, just hang around and talk to somebody. Like, go, you know. But I'm like, it's not that simple. The best case scenario in this situation is there usually is someone that will reach out to you. And again, pray about it too. But God usually at least has someone to reach out to you. And when I think back on my situation, I did have that. I just chose to not divulge into that as I could have. Like I could have, like there were people that did reach out to me and stuff. I just kind of was like, oh yeah, no, next time, or you know. But if I actually, you know, did go there, I probably could have got more involved. I probably could have had more friends that were Adventists in Gainesville. I could have for sure.
Sounds like
So
the
what
boat.
was what was it?
Sounds like the boat.
Right, he was sending the boat. So I was like, no.
Right. So what was the changing point for you?
Honestly, I didn't have one.
You didn't
I
really
didn't have one.
It was just coming back here.
I went to the 4 years and I did not. There were some people that I hung out with now and again, but I didn't really have a desire to make friends like that.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah. So, but I can only imagine, and I guess I always knew like I'm coming back home.
Yeah,
You know, all
so
my
you
friends are
knew
home.
you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
friends. Okay.
But I'm like, I
Right.
can only imagine the situation where like you are home.
Yeah.
And you don't have that. Like, let's say I moved to a new city or something like
Right.
that. It would be super tough for me, honestly. So I get it. What I would say, I'd be in the same boat as you. No, like as uncomfortable as it's gonna be, like you kind of have to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations,
Yeah.
like see it through. Because otherwise, it really isn't gonna happen. Like if
Yeah,
you,
that's true.
If you don't put yourself in the situation to be social to my friends, well, you know, 100% you're not going to.
Yeah.
But if you try, you know, at least there's a chance that you
true.
will make friends. So I would say that, like, put yourself in that uncomfortable situation. Usually, I'm telling you, there's usually someone that will reach out. Or if not, just observe for like a couple weeks, and you'll know who to approach. Just like observe, you'll see that like person that's like talking to everybody. You just approach that person and be like, oh, like I'm new here, and you'll be like, oh my God, there's so much. Like, I promise, there's every church has one. Every church has one. So yeah.
Wait, so who's that at our church?
We're not going to CJ.
All right, let's see.
Let's see. You have some.
I would say for you, I'm sorry that you're having to go through this. And of course, definitely, if you can go to therapy, I would highly recommend it so you can learn your triggers and the reason, maybe something happened in your past to what led up to this point that you're going through right now. But I would say a lot of it kind of goes into the environments. Like you said, right? You were in Gainesville in an unfamiliar environment for 4 years. It's not until you came to a familiar environment where you kind of became more extroverted. Yeah. So I would say for her, if you can put yourselves in more comfortable environments for yourself, so maybe you can meet people in those spaces that you're comfortable in. If you said you like deeper, intimate conversations, maybe try to go to a poetry club or a like poetry night or something that you can probably do to get or gain deeper conversations, or like a book club, something, right? And also maybe you need to change your environment. Maybe you're in an environment to where it's not most conducive for you to gain friendships. So if you change your environment, you might have a new and fresh perspective, and you might meet different people to where you want to kind of jump into those different conversations and make those connections and have those Sabbath keeping friends, or try new churches, or going back to an old familiar church that you might have went to in the past that you did like. So I would say to try to do those things, and maybe with the friends that you do have right now, think to yourself and say, okay, how did I make those connections with the friends I have now?
No,
right?
that's true.
So if you did a specific thing, or it happened a specific way, I would say if you can try to recreate that atmosphere or that mind frame or those scenarios or situations, to kind of do that and see if it helps in that process.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. I'd also say, definitely, I thought of something as you were talking. You know, you were like, you kind of never made space Even in so, I almost thought, like, if you never make space, think about it this way. Someone would literally have to chase you down to your car before you got in the car and drove away to be like, hey, I want to talk to you. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes, and this is not like taking away from how you feel, because I've definitely felt that even like when I went to Oakwood, it was like, I didn't go there. I went there at the end of orientation. So like everybody already made friends. Like, it was of course like a whole new environment for me. I didn't know like anything. And I was almost like, even though I'm an extrovert in a lot of ways, I like that first day and like getting acquainted and stuff like that, it was very, very, very weird for me. But what I would say is, I like how you talked about interests, like things that they liked. I would see like, what does the church have to offer in like social activities, for instance, right? Like we would have like a Sunday fun day or other things that we're doing at our church. So like, I don't think asking, you know, somebody, or let's say an elder or whatever, whoever you see that's either participating, like just a question like, hey, you know, like, do they have any like fun things to do? Like, do you guys have any like socials or anything like that? You know, because those environments, like when you go to something like that, like it's a whole lot more. Yeah, I feel like it's a lot less pressure than, okay, like I'm in church and, you know, most people after church, like you just hang out, like you just talk to just your friends.
Right.
Compared to, I feel like a social thing, yes, you still hang out with your friends, but everybody's more like engaged, mingling, talking. So I think in an environment like that, it's a lot less pressure. So I think that could be really good. And I did think about this. You know how you kept saying like there's always one? And you guys also said, oh, like earlier, be careful what you pray for.
Yeah.
I promise you, like this happened to me. I'm not saying it's gonna happen to you, but I would say try it. But when I was at Oakwood, there was a time when I literally felt like I didn't have, like I just wanted like that group or like that friend that got me, right? And, you know, I literally said that prayer. It took a long time. But I did end up getting somebody like that one person, but it didn't come in the box that I wanted or what I expected. So I'd even say that, you know, he was like, oh, you know, I had opportunities, but, you know, I kind of just whatevered it. I would say, you know, maybe there has been, you know, people that may have possibly reached out to you before, or, you know, maybe while you were walking out the door, someone's like, oh, hey, you know, the youth, like we're having a Bible study. In your mind, you probably could have been like, no, I ain't going to that. Right, you know what I mean? But like, those are sometimes those little things, or, you know, like I said, like I would say, what's the worst that could happen by being like, all right, God, like, if you can do it, I would like you to bring me a good friend that fits those categories you're saying, like with your values, that kind of stuff, and be like, okay, bring them to me in a way that I can't say it was anybody or anything else. And it's almost like, if he does do it, you will know. Because it's happened to me, and I guarantee you will know. You will know. But yeah.
All right, we have some good comments too regarding these questions. Regarding the first one about mental health, Danielle, piggybacking off of you, was like, God allowed us to have these professionals, talking about therapists, and she says, I think as Christians, it's major to ask God for the right counsel, lead us to that professional who can truly speak to what we need. There are Christian therapists who are able to deal with mental health issues while offering heavenly advice.
That's
true. Facts. Stephen and Sister Hunt are willing to be friends to anyone out there. Danielle,
they were speaking to the person.
Danielle says, comfort is a good place, but nothing grows there. True, unfortunately. When I'm not in a comfortable setting where I don't know anyone, I tend to stay to myself. However, we have to put ourselves out there. Stephen says, the only way you grow. Oh, that's the only way you grow. He said to tell him about him and Josh. Kiara says, set small goals for yourself. Try to talk to one person each Sunday and leave it at that for a while. Slowly you'll develop a network. True. Step by step.
So yeah, so to kind of say on what he was talking about, So my friend Steven, he was literally telling me this week how he has a really close like connection like with one of his friends named Josh, but it didn't start that way. So pretty much Steven is more of a, I say like he's very similar to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can be very extroverted, but he likes his alone time or to be himself. So pretty much like his friend was like, hey, like let's like he just met him at work and he was like, hey, like let's go hang out. And he's like, yeah, we will. Like that type of thing. And like anytime he would hit him up, he's like at home watching anime or at home doing something else. He's like, nah, I don't want to go out.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't until like I guess the friend kept bugging him over time, and then he was like, okay, I'll just go out, like whatever. And like he really enjoyed it. So you're not always, I'll be honest, I feel like you're not always gonna get a person like that. That's gonna be like, okay, like I'm gonna keep bothering you. But I think the reason why he was kind of saying to talk about that was because like that showed from his perspective of like being an introvert as well. And when he finally decided to get out of his comfort zone, it didn't feel good. But now they're like really close friends, and like he's super thankful for like their friendship, So, as we said before, you're not alone. And I feel like that can relate with a lot of other people, even if you weren't that person that wrote that in. Because I feel like we always have that.
For sure. All right, guys, we've had a pretty good show. I think we've had we even went longer than I thought this was gonna go. I thought it was gonna be a quick topic. I'm not gonna lie, but let's say a word of prayer and then stick around for a couple of announcements afterwards. All right. Digitus, we're thankful that you have brought us through this week. We're thankful that you've brought us to the end of another episode. Thankful for all the people that are watching here. We ask that the people that have heard this, that they will be blessed, that they will share it with others so that others can be blessed. God, we've discussed suffering, and it's something that we all go through. It's indiscriminate, and it's just a part of being alive as a human, unfortunately. But we're thankful that in whatever suffering we go through, no matter who's to blame or who's at the root cause of it, we're just thankful that you don't leave us alone in our suffering. As the song says, with Jesus in the vessel, you can smile at the storm. So we're just thankful that you are with us in these circumstances. And even if we don't figure out why we're in it, or even if we don't recoup things that we've lost in this suffering, God, we're asking that you will help us to draw closer to you in this, and that in the end it will all be worth it. And in the end, when we get to heaven, then we might get some closure. Then we might see why we went through what we went through. But God, we ask that you'll give us the strength that we need in the seasons that we are going through. Lead us to the people that we need to be led to help us end these seasons. Help us to be more transparent to our friends and to others. To allow them to see that they're not alone in situations that they're going through, that we've been there, that we're currently there. Help us to be able to give hope and life and love to others as you give hope and life and love to us. I ask that you will be with those that have sent these questions in, those that are looking for friendship and companionship. Send them to the right person, put them in the right environment where they're able to step out of their comfort zone a little bit and be rewarded by that. Those that are going through mental health problems, God, it's a rough and a tough thing to go through. And I'm sure that they're already talking to you about it. And I'm sure that you're already setting up ways for them to be able to get through this situation. Send them to the right people, give them the right counsel. Just ask God that you will move in their lives and in a mighty way. We ask God that you will keep us all safe and bring us back at the next episode. We're thankful for everything that you have done and everything that you are going to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, so if you guys have made it to the end of this, we want to say thank you. This was long. I do apologize, but we're thankful that you made it. Some quick announcements before you go. We have some events coming up. Our Sunday Fun Day is going to be the 30th. These guys can tell you they've been to our past Sunday Fun Days. We do pull out all the stops. We have like a lot of different games. It's really fun. If the person that sent that is in this area, come through. Like
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that.
You don't gotta, say who you are or anything like that. But like, we're all friendly out here. Like, you'll have a great time. we also want to shout out Adrian again for making our website, thewalklive.org. If you guys want to go there and put in more submissions for Talk to the Walk, so that we can keep having these real conversations, keep talking about things that you guys want answers to. You can go to our website, thewalklive.org. We're also gonna, NBA playoffs have started. Whoop, whoop. And we're gonna actually have some watch parties coming soon once we get a little bit further along in the playoffs. And there'll be more details about that, but we want you guys to come and support that. It's gonna be a good time. Even if you don't watch basketball, just being in the setting with a bunch of people talking nonsense and whatever, it'll be a good time. Like and subscribe, share the video. We want as much people as possible to see this so that they can all be blessed. We're going to have our next episode next month, the third Friday. We're going to continue in our series, The Whole Truth. If you are not following us, that's where you want to go to see what our next topic's actually going to be. We haven't picked it yet, but we have a lot of different ones lined up that we want to discuss. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good night, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Woo! Happy Sabbath, everyone.
Whoa. Before you go, make sure you like us on all social media platforms at The Walk Live, and find us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Our journey doesn't have to end here. Join us on the next walk.